this was one of the biggest altars that I had made.
Everybody just wants control. God does, enemy does, we do of our own life. It's literally all about control.
Baal did not die that day. Baal still existed and still was continued on, and Jerusalem Israelites still fell to serving this God.
Welcome back to Esther's Table. Lawson here, joined by my lovely wife, Chelsea, and her sister, my sister-in-law, Melissa, over yonder, across the seat from us. Apparently, I'm becoming a more commonplace fixture here.
Yeah, you are.
You know, warm body is in the room, throw him on the mic.
And that is why.
Who would like to introduce our topic today? Because I will go forward and say that part of my anxiety, fear, whatever you want to call it, fear of man, is that I feel a little less knowledgeable about what we're talking about today. And so I'm excited to learn and pipe up and chime in when I can.
I love that.
You can't even make that up.
I didn't
You
get
can't
that.
hear it. Siri just said, I didn't get that.
I didn't even know I had Siri. That
No
was the first
such
time
thing
Siri.
as fear, man.
That's absolutely hilarious.
I've never heard Siri talk on my phone before.
That is hilarious. So we're talking about the altar of Baal, kind of giving a snapshot of Baal with the Israelites, with those in the Bible, giving some of that example, but then also creating a practicality of where we see it now and how we see it within ourselves, in America, in life, and kind of not realizing that it's just this statue. You know, like I think sometimes we see it as the actual object, and really it doesn't have to be that way. It's an altar, which can be something that we've just created a covenant with and without even realizing. So we're kind of going to be discussing some of the content on that and give it some realistic approaches and how we pinpoint it and break that thing off.
Yeah, I think that it's easy to be fearful of being like, I don't know this, but I guarantee we start talking, people are gonna recognize this altar and maybe in their own lives, but also as a society. And so I appreciate your honesty, but I also think that you have a lot that the Lord has put, on your heart that you're going to share, because, we're just led by the Spirit here with that. And I agree. I think that's a big thing is a lot of people want to leave a lot of these gods and spirits and characteristics and demonic sides of things in the Old Testament. Mm-hmm. And they're like, well, Jesus came, that's done. I'm like, what the? No, if you learned anything from the Old Testament, no one learns anything. And they just keep doing a lot of these things are persistent. They have not died. Mm-hmm. And even in the stories we talk about, even this morning, God brought another one up of saying, this is something that is reoccurring. And it's almost like you're always going against good and evil. You're either going to want me or you're going to want anything else. And these are the anything else. This falls into that. So I don't know how you want to jump into it, but I have, yeah.
No, I will say one thing. I'm glad you already said, like, people think of altars as this physical manifestation. And I think for a long time, I even felt that way, where you'd hear like, oh, an altar of Baal or this or that. And you're like, what are you talking about? Who's building altars anymore? Like, clearly there still are people who do satanic stuff and build altars, but an altar can be positive or negative, of like building an altar towards God of habits, of that continual prayer, that continual talking in the Spirit, and building an altar in that way. But it can also be the opposite way of like an altar to Baal, like we're talking about today, of the negative side. It's not just you have a physical stone statue or whatever. It's like about the habits and the, spirits that can manifest inside those.
That's so good. I mean, I think for me, this was one of the biggest altars that I had made. I definitely came into agreement with it. Because what it does is it actually comes to light in a just one-off way. We've talked about how it just is slightly off and it's slightly skewed, where God gives you a good gift and he gives you something to steward well. And you are sitting in the spirit knowing that this is what you're supposed to be called to do. So I was building a business that I know I was called to do. And then all of a sudden what happens is you get money from that. And for my story, it was like the thrill of performance, the striving for more. I have to keep it up. Now I'm living a lifestyle based on that, as well as having a full team and the performance of continue on, build more, work 24/7, be constantly in that mode of build with the deep-rooted fear of like, what if I can't manage this well? What if I, lose it all? Or how do I stay in the know and be the one go-to person that these people come to? Like, how do I keep building, growing, and maintaining? And that right there, that little habit, all of a sudden Laura's like, nope, that's Baal, because you're self-protecting, you're self-relying, and it's idolatry. And Baal was built on this idea of Lord and Master, which is what Baal means. And there were two gods, and we can worship God and still be doing all these habits of not trusting him. And he was, in my story, was like, no, all of it goes. All of it's gone until you learn to fully trust me. And that's kind of where I am currently. And it took a lot of pruning for that one, because it is a sneaky one.
It is.
Yeah, it definitely is sneaky. It's funny hearing you say as someone outside looking in. I feel like there was a period of time where you and Nick, Chelsea and I, was in a joking way, but like take pride in how busy you were, and that type of thing of like, I couldn't possibly do anything else. You don't even know how much stuff I got going on. It's crazy.
Seriously.
And like, you really did.
The joke is we'll see you guys in like 6 months or next year.
It would be like, hey, in 2 weeks, you guys want to go have dinner? We can't have dinner until March 2027. Like
3 months from now.
Yes, but it was like, it was almost like funny because you were. It wasn't like you were lying about it, but it was a sense of pride. Yeah. Your pride was in like
pride. Look what we're doing. We're in it. We're grinding.
Yeah.
Yes.
Grind set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's important. Maybe I'm just like the nerd in this group of this. I love understanding like the background of where it comes from to understand how we can like get a grasp of what it is in the Bible, and then how we can transfer it, like you said, into our life and make this altar that we walk around it. And this is what you said. It is a clear opposite. It is a rival of serving the Lord is serving anything else, and this is one of those gods. So back in the Old Testament, there was just gods galore. Anything that you can worship for something, there is. And we still see that in today's culture with not just the obvious things, but there's also cultures that still, pray towards certain gods for rain and harvest and this. And that's what the people of the Old Testament pagans, which is just not Jewish or Israelites, they would worship a lot of different gods. And constantly Israelites would just be falling into it. That's why God was really cared about who they married. And why that was so important is because he knew that when you became one with that person, you're taking on also their gods and what they believe in. And to this day, that's still true. Like if you marry someone who does not believe in God, you're taking on all the other beliefs of gods that they're taking on. Right. So the Baal is, like you said, it means Lord or Master, and it was sometimes worshipped by the Israelites too, but it was mostly worshipped by the pagans, they said. So we already talked about this, and I kind of love that this came up, was about Mount Carmel and with Elijah. And so when we talked about the spirit of Jezebel, and the Jezebel as a person, the character of the person of the Old Testament, she was the queen that was saying, send out the people to have this altar, have this fire, and have Baal. That was the god that they were calling upon to bring the fire, because Baal is worship for fertility, for weather. They would depend upon it for survival. So you wanted lightning, you wanted, this fire to fall down onto this fire pit. They were going to call on Baal. So that's what that whole day of them doing, cutting themselves, self-harm, sexual things like orgies, things like that to get Baal to bring this fire down. And that's why it was so profound, because Elijah comes in and says, dump water, dump water, dump water 3 times. So it was like water was overflowing, and God came down with fire and blasted that thing up. And that was it showed that he beat Baal, and showed that that God actually did not exist in that way. For them. It wasn't for their good. It's ironic to be like, you're a God fertility, and then you would sacrifice a baby for like their firstborn. That was like a thing. And so it's just ironic. Like, God is not, here, give me a child, I'll give you a child. It doesn't even make any sense. God's like, let me just give you children. And so it's just a direct line of, you're asking for different things out of it, but you're in today, and this is the Canaanites and, the Phaeacian, it's like the Philistinian group that was like the mostly who served this God. So if you're, you see in the Bible that they married the Canaanite woman, this and that, it's because the God of Baal was a really big God for them to serve. So that's why it is significant to understand, who served this God mostly and why it was so important in this time. Mm-hmm. But now would you say, Baal did not die that day. Mm-hmm. Baal still existed and still was continued on, and Jerusalem Israelites still fell to serving this God. You see it again too with Gideon. That was who Gideon was coming against, was Baal. And so there's so many times where you see the Israelites in the Bible coming against, and people could say, oh, it's gone. Why is it gone? Why would it be gone? So what does that look like exactly? How does that translate into today's society in 2025? Mm-hmm. What does Baal look like, and what would you say exactly? Because that's what I believe you were kind of talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote out that it's one of those divided allegiance, right? So the Lord's after your heart. The Lord's after your complete and utter trust, and the alignment of having everything that I am be only focused on what he says about me and what he wants me to do. And Baal's mindset, I should say, like the thought process or the heart allegiance, starts sometimes to shift and be like, okay, you gave me these things. Those are true. Those are real. Yes, you will protect me. Yes, you will provide for me. But I need to suddenly have a safety plan. My safety plan then turns into, I gotta make more money. I gotta make sure I keep up with my money. I gotta make sure that I, hustle enough for this, or I'm working hard for you. I always heard like the stewardship aspect. Like, if you've given me this, I gotta work really hard at it. I want to make sure that it's kept and preserved. But in exchange, so there's an exchange, just like you described, an exchange of that, it was a deep root of self-protection or self-reliance. Whereas the Lord was like, our exchange is just love, right? Just pure trust, just love. But when you start going in this direction, you're only trusting yourself. You are becoming your own idol, because you are not thinking, I can do it. Or you might think I can do it, but your heart is not saying, I can do it. Your alignment is not there. So I see that amongst people in whether you own a business, whether you don't own a business, whether you're a mom, a dad, you're just, you're doing what you think you're called to do, and that's great. But as soon as that starts tipping over to the idea that you have to do it, that's, I think, the fine line with seeing Baal type symptoms, the playbook a little bit of what that looks like. What do you think, Lawson?
I felt this over here.
What?
I felt your thinking.
Oh, well, I was gonna ask you, how do you tell the difference between when you're fading towards Baal versus God's provision, but then you kind of explain that of when you're letting the thoughts of like, well, what if the bottom drops out? What if everything goes wrong? Well, I need to do this, I need to do that, instead of just being like, God's going to provide. If this is what I'm meant to be doing, God has called me to do this, like it's going to work out. And if it doesn't, that means it's part of his plan and he was putting me through this to move to the next step. So here's a question for you then about everything. Where is the defining line of like, okay, I just need to pull this back and reset, or I need to step away from this? Because for you, you know, you said it was go, go, go. We were doing this, growing the business, this and that. And you were like, oh, I need to step away from all of this. Mm-hmm. How do you make that call? And I know you're going to say pray, but how do you make that call of being like, okay, I need to dial it back, and you know what? Like, God, you're good. You've blessed me with this. I need to just let go of this, but I'm still going to keep doing what I'm doing. I'm still going to, because I think that's so much easier. And I could say it's definitely a place that I've been in for a long time and I'm trying to move out of like, okay, God, I see what you're saying, but I'm just going to slow down with this a little bit.
Yeah.
Not totally let it go, slow down a little bit. Like,
Yeah.
how do you fight that, and how do you get to the place of being able to totally drop your business that's really successful and doing really well? Obviously, like, you sold it, so it's not like you're like,
Yeah.
all right, I'm going to give it up for free and lose. It's not like that. But
yeah, but some
you know,
people could be like, okay, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not seeing provision from it.
Yeah.
I think for me, it was burnout. So my mind, I was telling God, I trust you, help me, I'll do whatever. And yet I was not still to hear, because my mind was wrapped around of what I could control. And I think control ends up being such a piece to this of Baal, where I'm building what I know how to do, but at some point I physically have no capability of building or expanding or growing without the grace of the Lord. And at that point, it turns to burnout, or it collapses, or an opportunity comes and I just get rid of it, go, like sell it. Yes, a great opportunity came for me, but I do believe that after it was like, what do I do? What do I put my hands to next? How do I use these skills? And the Lord's like, no. We gotta prune this, because if you continue this way, you're just gonna go ahead and build Baal again. Yeah. You're gonna continue on. So I would say burnout, you can experience because it's chaos in your mind, it's chaos in your soul. I always find it's fear, anxiety, like, how do I do the next thing? How do I make more money? How do I provide? What does that look like? The second thing, though, I notice a lot now, being on the other side of it, is the routine. There's so many people who are really good at routine.
That's why I mentioned earlier in the very beginning when you said altars, not a physical thing. It can be this routine, this systematic thing that you develop, like in a positive way. Like I said, waking up every morning, reading your Bible, praying, doing this and that. You're building an altar to God. When you do those things, you can do it inversely as well.
Completely. And that's
routine.
exactly right. I see these people who, I have really great friends. I was this person, so I can see it now. But I was so routine, like wake up early, do this, do that. If it kind of changed, and I wouldn't say like there's some places and spaces that I don't hold value in my day that I'm like, okay, it's okay if it's not so strict. I'm okay with that. But my nap time, you better believe that was strict. Like I created routine for sleep, for families, so that there's structure that they could control in their day. Like I literally created this. And in the business. And so all of a sudden this perfectionism came in of control and safety. And deep down, it was something I would do in order to create more from it. And deep down, it wasn't anything more. It was fear. It was fear-based. And so that was and the whole time the Lord kept saying, do you trust me? For 2 years, he asked me this, do you trust me? And I was like, yes, Lord, I trust you. And he was like, no, do you trust me? Yes, Lord, I trust you. And 2 years of that came to a halt of, do you trust me now when like it's all gone? And I was like, I don't know how to trust you. I'm pretty disappointed in you. Why are we here? And that's where it began to be like pruning off of my way of building and really trusting his way of building.
I think that right there, there's a point as humans, we sit there and say, God, you gave me this promise and this is your word. And it's not in our timing. And then we question, the enemy goes, did you really hear that? And so then you start questioning the timing of it. And you can easily get to a place where either you have a fork in the road of like, you gotta just keep on sitting with him and maybe not understanding where you're getting led to, but he's leading the path because that's his word. Or you say, I can't help it. I got to take it in my own hands here. And maybe you're saying, I need to go do something and go work, but he didn't tell you that. Like it's a fear of like, I need to move forward in something. So let me go down this path. And I think that's what when I sat thinking about what Baal was and the altar that it can be, the reality is it's us taking God's given word into our own hands and then walking out on our own way and saying, okay, I'll exchange my energy because I'll put in the work and then I'll receive prosperity. I will go work out and eat healthy and my body will be in the right place to have children. I will, go and strive and strive and strive. And then you're making it be on your own strength. And you said you had exhaustion out of it. And I honestly think this is bigger than most people think but it's so easy to fall into because it comes down. I think fear is the thing that is like the obvious of the action, but it comes further down even to what you believe in. Like if we don't truly believe that God is our provider, that we heard his voice and he said what his word gave us. Mm-hmm. If we don't believe that, then we allow then fear to come upon and direct our steps. But if our belief saying, like you said, I can say I trust you, but your belief is really the heart of, does my inner parts really believe that? Or my thoughts, the belief system of, no, I have hope in you, I have trust in you, your word says this, Lord. Or does one day we wake up and we shift and we go, well, I guess I, have to step into this, because then our belief system's off, what we actually believe in. And some might say this is going too intricate into the idea of who God is, but it's not, because you can countlessly see through the Bible, people struggled with this and God kept coming in saying, come to me, have no other gods before me, have full devotion to me, and all these promises and all this word. Yet he knew we get free will. Sitting in my prayer closet today, I'm just sitting there thinking, God, I just wish to have Eden. I wish to walk with you. I wish to have the goodness that you have for me. Like, how cool would it have been to be in Eden? And I do not judge Adam and Eve in this, but he gave us free will. He gave that tree knowing that we could have the choice still. He didn't want us just to be in this beautiful place where it's perfect and easy to not make mistakes. And that's what I do believe, there is that darkness in our world for us to, because he still says, I don't want you to just do it because you have to. Mm-hmm. I want you to be so devoted to me and love me because you had the choice to say no to yourself, to greed, to this idea that you have to have more, or you have to be successful, or the world will judge you, or you're a failure. You can just be with me. And that's what I think sometimes the enemy can distort our brains into saying that's more important, is that did God say to sit back and be still? Like he also said, you need to work for it. And that's not untrue, but you're distorting what God is saying and the Eden that he's wanting for us. Mm-hmm. So I think it is so tricky and it's so fine line for a reason. And that is I won't even say the beauty, because it's not. That is how the enemy is so crafty. Mm-hmm. And that's what the Bible says. He's crafty. Because if it's so far left, it's easier for us to be like, oh, it's a little farther away to walk away from God to do. Mm-hmm. But if it is so close to being like a fear, a belief, a thing, but still have God right there, we can justify it as being like, oh, God told me I need to work for it too. I can't just sit back.
Yeah.
I need action in my faith. But if it's on your own will and not the strength of the Lord, it's on you, not the strength of the Lord.
Yeah. I think thinking about it, a lot of it, like everybody just wants control. God does, enemy does, we do of our own life. It's literally all about control. And I think you talking about how you built this altar of routine to your business, I don't think it's saying that God wants us to be like sloppy idiots stumbling around. He's like, don't worry, I'll make sure you're going the right direction and kind of smack you back and forth. It's not that. But everything is about intention. And it makes me think about when we had Elena on, who she was a woman who basically got into witchcraft, but was still a self-proclaimed Christian, but realized she was like doing witchcraft practices. One of the biggest things I took away from that, she said, it's all about intention, because she talked about how, they could create, like literally she made almost a joke, but a pumpkin spice latte and make one and it'd be fine, but then make it with the intention of like, I'm grinding up the nutmeg because it signifies this. And I'm basically like in your mind creating a spell, creating a potion, whatever. And it's the same way I think as building an altar of you're building these things in your life and your routine out of self-protection and out of lack of trust is what, if you really pulled it back to see what it was. And what you just said, it's such a fine line. And that's the hard part, is because everyone wants the same thing. Satan wants to control you. God wants to control you. Satan wants to control you for bad reasons. God wants to control you because he wants what's best for you. And I think the line of that altar is like, are you building these things, these routines, because you are trying to protect yourself from what God has for you and protect yourself? Or are you doing them to glorify and see God's purpose? And it makes me think about our kids, where it's like, yeah, if our kids listened perfectly and did everything right, they could do whatever they wanted. Like, I wouldn't care. Like, they could watch TV for an hour. If the second I turned it off, they said, "Thanks for letting us watch TV, Dad. What do we got to do next?" Like, how love our kids more than anything. How much would you be willing to give them? And I don't mean that like in a withholding way, but knowing that they could handle it. Like, if our kids said, "Oh, I would love to watch TV all morning, and then I'll go read a book and I'll do this and that, and then can we have a special treat?" And they were just like obedient and went through their day and they did the things that were asked, it would be really easy to give them those things. But as a parent, we have a 4-year-old and 2-year-old, so it's different when you have older kids, but they can't handle those things. And so you have to give them what they can handle, because you're controlling them for the betterment of their lives. Yeah. And so it's like, I don't know, you build these things, and like you said, I think it comes back to, what's your intention? Are you doing these systematic routines because you don't trust God and you're trying to protect yourself? Or are you doing them because you're trying to live out God's potential for you? Because I think it's okay to be like, well, I have to get up at the gym at this time and do this and do that and have those things, because some people really, really need that. And that might be part of what God's saying to you, but it's maybe taking the time, like you said, and like being like, oh, I am building an altar to Baal. I'm not doing this to honor God right now. Like, I've built my life around not trusting him.
I think you realize where your heart is when it's all gone. So say you have no food and you're fasting, or say you have no gym and you are sitting there being like, that was an idol. That was an idol. That was there to help me, that I took to another level, that I relied on, right? And I think, again, it's that little sliver, move away, slight turn that says, this was good. This was a good gift that God gave me. I could use my body. I could work out. I could please him. I could create that, stimulus that continues on with my day. But when it's all gone, is it hurting my heart? Is it hurting my mind? Like, I could be working out right now. Why is my body not working out? Like, that was another thing. There are so many of those little slight curves that if it's all gone, what's your heart posture at? And I think that's where he'll take you to, if you allow it to be gone for a minute. And I don't know, it's a check in your spirit in those moments.
I have multiple times had to step away from the gym from sports. And I can think of a time where I did it in high school, and I didn't realize now that's what I was doing. But we'll say the gym, because it's more recent, like I'll find myself becoming very, very competitive. And you guys know me very well. I'm very easygoing, like kind, try to be kind to everyone, whatever. And being in that competitive environment, and after a while being pissed, being so mad, angry at other people, angry at people around me, people who are cheating, people who are cheating, like people, but like
okay,
people who are cheating in the gym or whatever, and not being able to be like, whatever, it doesn't matter. I'm 30 years old doing CrossFit at a gym that truly does not matter.
Yeah.
And like seething with rage internally. But turning that sometimes into being a jerk to someone, like passive aggressively, maybe not even intentionally, and being like, what am I doing?
Yep.
Like, and having that realization of times like having to remove myself from the competitive environment of it because it would get me so frustrated. Yep. And that comes down to you're building an altar, because I would get to a place where, and she's seen me do it over and over again, where it's like, I'm going to the gym this day. Afterwards, I'm going to run 3 miles. I'm going to go, like maybe later in the night, I'll do a kettlebell workout in our driveway and walk up and down, do farmer's carries. It's like, for what?
Yeah.
And when I was in high school, looking back now, I didn't realize this is what I was doing. Like I was very, very highly competitive at soccer, like whatever. And getting to a point where like all of a sudden I became awful, like mean to my teammates, like mean to like, just not being a good person or whatever, and being overly hard on people, like screaming, yelling at people, like, come on, what are you doing? Like, and you know me, but you know me, but I was never like that. But when it got to the peak of like, I'm going to go to college, I'm going to play soccer. Like, you guys are holding me back.
Yeah,
like
I see you.
And we go,
well, it's to see you there.
yes,
I wasn't
we
like
went
that
to a
with
private
sports.
school with like, I had 31 people in my graduating class. Not going anywhere. Like I could have played like high D2, low D1. It literally didn't mean anything when you look at it back. But at the time, looking back at myself, like being embarrassed by my actions of like, no, I built an altar. This is everything to me. Nothing else matters. And like I said, I was always really nice, calm, quiet. And all of a sudden I am seething. I am mad. I am mean to people around me. And it's like, yeah.
For that example, I had noticed, and I've done it many times, we're very similar in that area. I mean, I used to yell at Nicole playing basketball.
I remember that.
Like,
no,
get
that
it
just brought me
together. The person just went right by you and scored, and you didn't put your hands up once. Like, I would yell in the game, yelling at her, and I feel horrible now. We've talked through a lot of that.
That's hilarious. I remember it because I watched
so
it.
Bad. But what I noticed is, God gave you the gift, right? He's giving me this talent. He's giving me this gift. I want to use it. Okay, go to the gym, which you're right, means absolutely nothing. It's for me to feel strong, stay, active with my kids. That's the whole point of why I go. Then all of a sudden, what it does is a little push and a little high, and you're like, "Oh, I still got it. I still got it. Okay." And I'm like lifting well, and I'm outrunning these young chumps, and
young chumps.
You still get it. You get home, I'm exhausted with my kids because of what I just did, and now all of a sudden my mindset is, what's the workout tomorrow? Who's going to be in that class? I got to make sure I go to a really good class.
Let me see the results. Oh my goodness, they're liars.
Yes, and then all
you
of
become
a sudden,
obsessed with
none
it.
of it was for the purpose of what God intended it.
Yeah.
It was for my own self, and that right there is like the slight shift. It's just this: where's your mind? Where's your heart? And if it's to glorify God, if I go and I'm just like, who cares? I'm going to go meet some people there, work out, talk, which I now tend to do, is like, hey, who am I going to talk to today? To me, that's why I'm there. And I come back and I can still play basketball with my kids afterwards. Like that's the shift that I've had to work on by getting rid of it, resetting my heart and mind, and then also just spending time with the God who created me.
Yeah. I feel like unless you want on top of that, what are some other like easy places that altars can be built?
1,000% finances, 1,000%. And I heard this once, and it literally completely changed my life. It's like if you open like your mail and you get a bill and you're like, your first thing is like, ugh, you have a problem. Like, and I was like, yeah, it's true. Like, if you're not just being like, okay, like not, there's emotions attached to the bill, that's a problem. And I was like, or if you see a payment coming and you're like, okay, how are we going to do this? That's a problem. It should be a red flag. And I was like, I do that all the time because I was the one that was doing the finances. So I would kind of be obsessively like, okay, how are we going to make this work? Or how is it going to look? Or how, whatever. And I realized, you know, the God kept bringing me to the same test over and over again because he was trying to show me I didn't trust him. I said I trusted him. I tithed. I did all the things I was required to do to say I trust him. But my heart was still the first emotion given to reaction to a bill or to a thing was, okay, how are we going to do this? And not, okay, God, you got this. And I realized there was an altar in it saying I was going to be the one that made sure the provision was going to happen. And the idea was a future problem. And a lot of the time, the finances thing, when it comes to at least our finances, it's always future problems. It's always future what ifs and not the Lord, what are you going to do, Lord? And so the Lord really took me to my knees on this because it happened month after month where I'm like, I don't know how we're going to do this. Or because we would have, you know, perfect things line up or, you know, a kid needing surgery or things I didn't know what to expect come up. And, you know, it brought me to basically a place where he was like, you have this altar of striving and wanting to be like, if I do everything right, I should receive. And I'm not even saying like the whole concept of tithing. I'm talking about if I be a good steward, if I do the work, I'm going to get prosperity. And that's what the Baal can be is this, it's still it was still an altar. And he made me sit with him and remove every stone of this altar and saying, you need to give up this fear in it. You need to give up these ideas you have surrounding this altar which is Baal. But I didn't realize it was that. I realized, I thought I did it, that fine line of I'm being a good steward of God. You told me to budget and to do this and do that. And I made it a job. I made it not a sacrifice or an offering. I talked about this, like one of the first podcasts of even my heart of giving tithing. Now it's completely different. Now I sit there and I pray over the offering. I actually pray the blessings into where I'm sowing it and pray for that ministry or that church or that thing. And like it became, I want to do this because I love you so much, Lord, not because it's a transactional faith, like you said, a back and forth. So like and ironically, the Lord said, okay, now it's his turn. So he made me shift all the finances onto him months ago. And then he had to walk through the same thing, right? And so it was funny because when he would come to me with the same feelings I had, because the Lord was shifting our family roles and saying, this is not your role to take, this is his. And so he shifted it. But it was right after I learned that lesson. And I was like freely getting things. And I'm like, whatever, God's going to provide. I can't wait to see how you're going to do it.
Yeah.
He came with the same emotions. And I was like, God's going to do it. But it's interesting then to see someone go through the same thing and realize we each have these altars to Baal that we don't realize we need to take each stone with the Lord.
Yes.
With the Lord, sitting him, holding the stone, or almost holding my hands on the stone, saying, I'm going to help you take this down. I want you to trust me. You're not giving me any rooms for miracles. You're giving me no room for my glory. You're not giving me any space. And like the gym, all those things, I was doing it everywhere. I was doing it everywhere. And so you think it might be one thing, like the gym's so obvious. Sports are so obvious because we all three do it. And you have other humans involved. But the finances, you don't really have that many other humans involved. You have your family and that's it. So you might voice those fears to your family. And then I realized too, I was creating a fear for him in my fear. That by the time my altar was gone, he already had that altar built up because I allowed the stones to be passed to him. And then I dismantled this thing with the Lord, dismantled this thing and built a new one of Jehovah Jireh, like I am your provider. And I believe that. I know he is. He constantly showed up me, improved me. But then I just shifted the altar to him, and I'm like, yikes. Now how do I try to encourage him without controlling? Hey, you need to take down your altar. Like the Lord said, I'm doing the same work in him because I want each of my children to take each stone off with me. And wherever they have these altars, because it's like you said, you can make a routine, you can make it, and you can not realize you're actually starting to build an altar back. Like you're not, Gideon went and fought Baal, and then he ended up ironically asking for the earrings of all the men and building an idol. It's like, and I don't point him out to be like, look, he failed. It's like, no, look, it's possible to go back and build the same altar back again. But the pruning, the bringing you to a place where you can like recognize it, because it will start feeling heavy and exhausting and striving. And that's when that's not of the Lord. I don't see anywhere where God says to strive.
Yeah, that's good. I know that one of my friends, we were talking about this, and they were saying how they've placed their family as that altar. More so, they both didn't come from a great family, and they wanted to make their family, there's some sort of control, but like more like, we're going to bond. We're going to be close. We're going to be your refuge. But in a way that was like based around the needs of the kids and what they were designed to be like. And it was all about them. And like, it was it was weird. It was like not in a refuge, like let's just fruitfulness. You'll see like,
or like codependent,
self-centered, like we're together, we're a unit, we're going to go do whatever it is together, which is great. But that was their identity. Like that was the mom's identity. That was the dad's identity, was the family. And so the Lord was like, no, that's an altar. You've built a Baal. Like that's your self-protect. Like your deepest root is actually self-protection, because you don't want them to turn out the way you feel towards your family. So you create this like bubble.
So I'm going to smother them.
In a way.
And then this is just like a random thing, because are the kids still like in the house, like young age?
They're starting to go.
So we have a really close family friend, and like friends, and that is literally the dynamic. And now they're all grown, and they struggle with being on their own. And I mean it in the sense of their identity, their emotions, their foundation is their family, not God. And they're believers. And I'm not saying that as a judgment. I'm saying that it's something that as parents of young people, I'm like, where's that fine line? Like, where's that fine line of wanting to create a new, different family loving thing that you're close and great, and also realizing you're creating such a strong codependency that they don't know how to walk with the Lord, like as their foundation, as their person they go to for when they fear, where they want to fail, and they go, God, what do I do? Instead of, Mom, what do I do? And
they fix it for you.
And or they're like, come back to the nest, and we'll love all you. Like we'll all be safe in the nest. And Dad used to always say that to us. He's like, he called me so much when I lived in New York, because he's like, you're away from the nest. And I just want you to be in the nest. Even though when I got here, he's like, you're out. You're like not allowed to be in the actual nest, which I appreciate, it's to some degree, but like there's extremes. There's extremes of being like too hard on your family because you want them to trust God. And it's because God's saying like, you're their parent, you love them. I put you in there to teach them and to guide them, but you're also not God. But there's these people who reach out for encouragement of like, what do I do? And I still seek that, but it's like, God's going to have to show them that every single person God's going to reveal for themselves. You can't just be like, you have an altar of Baal over there. Like that's not what he wants us to do either.
No.
But it opened my eyes to not creating that. And like God gave me that insight for our family, for both of us, because it's easy to judge low hanging fruit of like, it's not my problem. It's not my life. It's easy to judge non-biased, but you're like, how easy is it for us to do the same thing, but maybe look a little different,
Yeah, I'm just laughing to myself because I know both of you are talking about people who I probably know, and I have no idea who you're talking about.
Like, who are they speaking about?
I'm not talking about, and that's why I don't often say it, but I feel like there's a reason why we have like the Bible and examples, because, you know, it is easy to, like, I want to learn from people. I think there's a lot of things in the Bible that are clear examples of warnings. You know, even we're talking about Baal, like we've talked about Jezebel. She literally killed a vineyard owner to receive prosperity. It's like false prosperity. And yeah, we're not out here murdering people, but what are we doing? Like you said about the gym, what, you know, even me to myself, sometimes not always outside, but we're creating false prosperity by putting actions in our own hands. And so that's kind of what that is like you can create a false prosperity within a family.
Or security. What are you doing to create security outside of God?
Yeah.
Like if he's saying, trust me, then my trust is like with him. But all of a sudden, if I feel unsafe or something happens within my family, what is my action? Am I trying to create a security that's not true? And that right there is just slightly off, right? Like I trust God, so my trust should be, okay, God, what do you want me to do about this? Not, okay, all right, everyone, you do this and you do this and you do this, and we'll be safe here doing this. And that's exactly it. Like, where's the false security in?
And you're creating the false security for your kids too.
Right.
Like that on the other side, that's what you're creating them to function in.
Exactly.
You know, I'm reading this book. It's been really so simple, but to the point. And one of the things it talks about is like, you know, babies come out on this earth and they look to you and they think I can do everything. They look at parents and they think I could do everything that my parents could do. So like they're learning to walk. They don't know they're going to fail. They don't know failure. They don't understand that concept. They're just saying, oh, you want me to walk? I'm going to walk. But if you're sitting there and you're saying, don't fall, don't fall, don't fall, you're creating that fear in them. And like, I think my biggest fear as a parent is just creating the fears like that. You know, like I don't want my kids to feel like me create limits on them based off my own fear. But this is how it can get passed generationally. And it's such a pure thing of like, she describes it and I'm like, it's true. Like babies just come out and they don't know how to talk, but they try and they fail. And it doesn't matter because they just keep trying. And that's how God created us. And that's how God created children to keep doing things, not knowing that they're going to fail because they don't have that in there. That's not how God, our like factory setting is. But we create these altars because we accept the fear that we don't like from people sometimes, or from darkness. And then we live out in a different destiny that way instead of saying, God, you said this is my destiny. So I'm just going to live, and I might have some failure, but I have more hope. And that's what she talks about. And I'm like, oh, that's so true. Like how many times do we not do something because we're afraid to fail than doing it and maybe not fail?
And I just think too, it's like, how great is the idea? Like you're saying, baby factory setting, doesn't know. They follow after whatever the parents do. Like how great is the idea of being able to set that precedent for your kids of, well, they never seemed flummoxed or stressed or like super overwhelmed because they knew at the end of the day God was in control and they're able to go to that place. And whether or not your kids at 4 years old or, 11, 15, whatever, they conceptualize that. They can see that their mom and dad relied on God, or that they weren't just like, oh, like they weren't spazzing out, freaking out. And I just think it's, a good thing to keep in mind too, of like you're saying with kids, like our kids are not afraid of snakes and spiders and frogs, things like that, because I'm not afraid of those things. But honestly, because my dad wasn't afraid of those things, because we grew up and it was like, Dad, there's a snake, go catch it. Like that was so cool, how we grew up. And that's such a simple thing, because how many people can you think of that are like horrified of spiders? And it's because my mom was horrified of spiders.
Our whole family, the joke came, he said this out of like, he took all the kids at his parents' house to go like hunt for these things. And they were all kind of a little
frog
scared.
catching.
And they were a little scared because it's a generational of fear
Yep.
of like something so simple as I'm afraid of frogs got passed to a kid because they were so afraid of frogs.
Yep.
And then he was like, I'm not having it. But like, that is just frogs.
Here's a random question. Can you remember, like, I don't know, your dad, your mom, your aunt, your grandma, someone being freaked out by frogs or something? Or is it
No.
just truly that you guys just...
I don't know.
I'm not scared of frogs.
I'm not
though.
scared
Okay.
of frogs. It's
Or lizards.
It's
I
the
don't
other-
like alligators.
That's understandable.
that's understandable.
I could-
that
I-
one.
yeah.
But I'm saying
But
though, like,
Nicole and Brittany are
yeah.
they hate frogs.
And I don't know where that, like, maybe
Yeah.
their story they could explain, like, oh, I remember mom was freaked out. Like, I don't remember that because I don't remember that.
But it's such a simple example of something that truly, I would joke around. Spiders, like, I get spiders and snakes because they can be venomous or
Yeah.
whatever. But what's funny, too, not to dork out, like, if you understand what is harmful, like, if you understand that snake's venomous, that one's not. That spider is really venomous, like, that spider can hurt you, that one can't. Like, when you have that knowledge, like, there's nothing to fear about it because you understand it. And so it's the same way of, like, understanding what we started with the conversation of, I can build these routines and I can do this, but I know I'm not building an altar. Or it might be recognizing in your life, this is safe for me to do. This isn't safe for me to do because I know this leads somewhere bad. And yeah,
I think that's called boundaries.
good.
And that's a good thing.
And to that point, I think too, if we can recognize a trigger and see what it feels like, okay, I'm feeling anxious. That's a trigger. Why is that? Where is that? Why is that happening? And where's that from? And then we recognize, oh, I know why. I'm overwhelmed because I just scheduled 50 things today. That's a trigger for me. That's where I'm starting to build something I shouldn't be. Let's take a step back. What do I need to do, God, in this list? 1 or 2 calls? Perfect. I'm going to get rid of the rest. You know, like that there are moments of the boundary, but there's a feeling that often is associated in those moments that lead to what the altar is. And then once we can recognize the feeling that leads to that trigger, which is like the anxious, am I panicked when I get the bill? What do I feel? If that's a sudden jolt of like, I don't have enough, or lack, or fear, or there's something there.
And my thing to saying the frog with the finances is because we grew up in a household where that was the constant fear. And it was like talked in that extreme that like if a bill came, I don't know how we're going to do this, you know, and I don't say that again against my dad. I think maybe he learned it. It's generational, but if you do not cut these things in your bloodline for your kid, they're going to do it too. So if we don't recognize it and take these altars down, these altars are just getting passed down. And so that frog, I know that's a joke, but that's literally where the fear of how I responded. And the funny thing is most of the time now, even if he's doing it, God's like, okay, Chelsea, go label it all out. And then it's like all met. And he's like, it's all met. I kill that fear because even though I don't need to show you I'm providing, you need to just trust I'm going to provide. I already provided. This is what's coming through. And you don't even know you're limiting me for more. And so that's where it helped shift for me because God is so gentle in taking the altars down. But like that feeling is why did you have 50 things scheduled? Why? Is it because I'm proving that I can, or I need to keep hustling so it's successful? And I think that's that important question is asking yourself, why did I do this? Why am I at the gym for 6 hours? Why am I reacting this way? And so the trigger, I always say triggers are kind of a good thing because it does really show you a belief about yourself or about God. And it can show an altar. A lot of people do struggle with this because a lot of this too is in our world is now, it is just mainstream of our life now, of greed on social media, on growth. Because greed's not always just a financial greed too. Sometimes it's fame or success or achievement or being seen good. You know, it's not, but that all those things are self, and that's an idol too, is self-idolatry. And so I think that's what this exchange is, you're exchanging these things so that you can be, in whatever that category is. So we said, finances, we said the gym, but it could also be all those other things too.
Mm-hmm. How do you rebuild this? Like, okay, you notice it, you call it out, you repent against it, but how do you build? I'm thinking like, okay, I'm going to rebuild a business someday. I know I will. I know that's how God has gifted in me to do. And yet I'm not going to go backwards. My goal is to stay so aligned with him and his voice. How do you start noticing and rebuilding from there after you've torn these altars down, this altar in particular, rebuilt this alignment with the Lord and just walk out a plan he has for you?
If you figure it out, I'd love to know.
I knew he was going to say that.
I'm like, come on, let's go deep here.
That is precisely where I am sitting currently at the exact moment. So I don't really have a good answer for it. Yeah, it's scary. It's weird. It takes a lot of faith. And I feel like every single day I am still actively fighting against it, even though in my heart, soul, mind, every inch of my body is saying, stop. God has a different plan. It's still really hard to trust the only thing you've ever known. And for me, 30 years old, I have been doing the same thing since I was 20, like 19. The only thing I've ever done, my job of YouTube stuff. And I've been feeling this immense calling of like moving away, not necessarily from social media, but from what the topic and stuff that I'm doing. And I don't know what rebuilding looks like. And Chelsea knows me. I am not good because I'm trying to think about it, I guess you could say worldly and tactfully. I think one of my biggest positive attributes, sometimes negative, is that I am very much burn the ships type of personality of like, oh, this isn't serving us anymore. We're done with it. And that can be great sometimes because like able to just move on and not relish on things, but it can also be bad and, relationships or this or that. But this is one thing that I'm having a very hard time doing that with.
Why?
Because it is scary.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's scary to work for years and years building something up that is successful and could continue to be successful. If I really wanted to impose my will on it, it could be more successful. And step away from that into the unknown and something that you don't feel super gifted at the moment. But I think about it all the time. Like I've tried to tell myself, I haven't done it. Like I told her, like I would love to learn how to program and like code video games, do that type of thing. Weirdly, part of it's sentimental. My best friend who passed away, that was what he was doing. But it's easy to be like, well, I'm 30 years old. Like, okay, well, what if I learned for the next 2 years how to do that? You'd be 32 years old and you'd know how to code now. It's like so relative because you have a chance to rebuild yourself at any time. And I feel like that's part of breaking down these altars is that they're there and they're hard to break down because it's scary of what are you going to rebuild once it's broken. And still trying to figure that out, trying to figure out what God is having me build because I think he's having me break down the altar, and instead of taking a wrecking ball to it right now, I've been taking a flathead screwdriver and hitting it like that for 2 years trying to break it down. And yeah, I don't know.
That's okay. I think he's saying you're exactly where he wants you right now. Whether you have a sledgehammer or a little chisel.
Yes.
What about you?
The first thing I thought of was actually my relationship with the gym, because I've always had an idol towards working out that has come out of my identity of being told, I wasn't pretty enough or good enough. My body wasn't like good enough. And I like worshiped the gym. You know, I thought that was the way I was going to get the body that would make me lovable. And so I got good at things. I got good at and I look back and it's because I know God's favored me and gifted me with everything that I have with my abilities. But it turned into I didn't compete that way, like where I would yell at somebody, but it was in my heart of like, this is so important. I can't give this up. And if you can't give something up, and people can name something simple like alcohol because it's easy to like, not easy give up, easy to like call out.
Easy to recognize a problem.
But if your heart is the same thing towards the gym than alcohol, it's a problem. And so I shifted to a different even side because I was getting so frustrated. And I'm like, this isn't good. Or I was taking so much time away from when I was at my home talking about it or frustrated about it or looking at, you know, results coming in and being like, who cares? And so it almost, God gave me this, I say, like a invisibility of time just to heal and realize I just don't care. Like if I go start tomorrow on the other side again, I think it's really important for me to constantly, like I feel like God used that time of invisibility with just me and him in the hidden place to create protocols and foundational things to just realize I just don't care about it as much anymore. Mm-hmm. So even though like this week I haven't gone to the gym, I don't often do that. And I've done the things I'm doing this week and I've gone to the gym. Like it still was something I haven't been able to give up. And I realized my priority, it has to come back to, if you're daily sitting with the Lord and you say, show me, he will. So that is the most important thing, is having time in the word and time with him. Mm-hmm. And if I'm going to reapproach something that had a problem before in the past, it's not on my will anymore. It's not on my strength. It's not on my doing. My mind, my heart is completely different. I truly do not care about my score, my outcomes, my whatever. If it is just the Lord's actually more revealing of like, why did I send you there to get in the beginning? And don't run away from it. You just need to surrender this to me, and I'll give you everything. I'll give you success. Like I said to somebody the other day, I ran a race like pretty well, and they're like, wow, you should be so proud of it. And I'm like, I'm just more baffled that like in postpartum, I never thought I could do this again. But I also am a completely different person now, even where I walk with the Lord, that like, I don't care for that accolade. It's really cool, but it's more showing of like what God has done in my heart, that I'm not in my heart being prideful and also on the outside being humble. Oh yeah, that's not that big a deal. No, it's like, it's a big deal because it's like what God has done in my life. So I think it's really your heart posture and the boundaries and the feelings and the rules that you sit with the Lord with, and saying, yeah, I draw a line here. I can't. It's kind of like last week when you're talking about, you know, not having text messages with somebody else, or seeing like driving alone in a car with the opposite sex. Like you have to still create tangible boundaries to these things. And it might be saying like, let me change my membership to 3 days a week, so I'm forced to like not go 5 days a week. Mm-hmm. And maybe you have to, it's like if you're, you know, addicted to alcohol, it's like, I can't go to bars. I can't go to parties. I just can't. There has to be sometimes boundaries that are opposite of the world. The saying, I care this much about you, Lord, that I'm going to draw a line in the sand. Mm-hmm. But finances for me was, it shifted of, I just took every bill to him. Mm-hmm. I took every feeling to him first instead of letting me even respond to it. And so like, I would sit there and say, this is what I'm feeling, Lord. I'm giving this to you, but like, can we talk about it? And every time he etched away at that feeling that I needed to figure it out. Mm. And now I'm like, it'll be fine. I feel that now. I am back in the gauntlet of being around it, and I'm not affected by it same way. So I feel the same way. I know if I go back to that side of the CrossFit, I'll feel the same way because he's greatly altered me to being like, you've broken this, you can do it.
That's so good.
That you could start a business and it will not be the same. But you don't even, we said this yesterday, we're like, we're not the same. You're not the same. So even the same idea that we could go back, well, I'm not going back because I'm so greatly different than I was when you built that business. Did you talk to God the way you did?
No, never.
Exactly. So you're not going back. I feel like once you taste and see the Lord is good, it is hard to return to that old back. Like it's not even, it is so far behind you that I can't even imagine you building a business and prioritizing Altar of Baal. I think that habits can come back. You have to check them, but I can't even imagine you doing that. I can't imagine it. Because I do think you check yourself. I do think you sit with the Lord daily. I think you're when you're just in the army of one, sitting asking him whatever he wants. It's really hard to get back into this old way of just it's heavy.
Oh,
and you don't like
burdensome.
It's burdensome.
Yeah, I'm like, no,
I don't want that. That's why
I'll run away from it. It's like that's the
I'll
feeling
voice
I
it.
feel. Yeah,
I'll even voice it. Like someone tries to come at me and jokingly be like, try to beat me. I'm like, absolutely not. At the gym, I'm definitely not good. I'm just not going to.
Yeah.
I know my capacity. Yeah. I know where the line I can't cross. I know I don't want to pick that up. Yep. I know I don't want to be obsessive anymore. That is dead. That is an old self. So I do think you can do. I do also believe knowing, it has us in different seasons for a reason, and that's what the beauty of believers is. We're building each other up, iron. Like I don't think one is better, less, than the other.
Right.
I think that's why we're in community. That's why we're sitting here talking about this, because it is harder to say, I don't know, than it is to have an answer. And I think that's what God is trying to get us to say, I don't know, but you do. I don't know what it is for you, but he does. And I know that because why the Lord the other day said, write all the things I answered in the last month, because you haven't. You've acknowledged it slightly, but you haven't acknowledged it. So I spent a whole prayer just saying, oh yeah, in the last 6 months you answered this, Lord. Oh, you answered this. And because sometimes things can slightly change every day and then it's just answered and we don't acknowledge it.
Yep.
And then we sit there and when we look ahead, we haven't seen, we don't remember. And so I remember, again, this book has been so good. She was talking about how like the Israelites had to put memorial stones and they put them there to remind themselves of what God did. And it was the Jordan, of crossing Jordan. And you put the 12 tribes, the 12 stones. We also put 12 in the water. And our pastor talked about this, where he said, I think I brought this up before, where they needed to know when it was the Jordan goes down really low and you'll see the 12 stones. So the Lord knew that they were going to have times where they were going to be in these storms, in these moments of wanting to, do I go back to self-reliance, self-protection, Baal.
Go start praying
From Baal. Let me get rain, Baal, because we're drought. Or do you see the 12 sons of Baal? Oh, he did this. He did this for us. He stopped the water so we could cross. And Jordan's a wild river. It's not like a little peaceful river. You go look it up, Google it. Like it is. The pastor showed us it, and I was like, "Whoa! I don't know. I'm not from that region. I've never seen the Jordan." But literally, that God knows that we need to be reminded. We need to be reminded what He has done. That's what the Bible is for. It is a reminder of what all He's done, and He is the same God. So in those moments where we are allowing fear to creep in because we're human. And He knows we're flesh, and He knows that we're going to have it sit there because it's old tactics, the same thing that He knows we're going to bite at. We need to sit there and be like, okay, God, we step away from it for a second and be like, sometimes it's just reminding us who He is and what He's done for us specifically. And that's what He taught me because I was freaking out about something. And He was like, chill out, sister. Go speak out loud your answered prayers. And I had like 5, and they were big. One of them being our son. We prayed for years for it. We realized there was so much there that we didn't even understand was happening. And he told us to have his surgery. Had his surgery. This kid's completely changed. We're getting to school telling us what we thought a year ago he was getting kicked out of a school. The school now is telling us all the incredible things of him and telling both of us separately just how proud they are of us. And I was like, that was from the Lord, of saying, like, we surrendered him, and he came through and answered that prayer.
Yeah. That's so good.
We got a stone sitting out, not here, but we got a stone in our own house. You know, we have those memorial stones. You also said, who is the friend that wrote down those?
Lauren Chippy. Shout
out. But like,
every single stone, they write it out, they put it in a glass jar, and they can go back and be reminded of all those memories that they had together. That God has done this. God has answered our prayer here. This is what we've done. And
maybe that's it. Maybe the altar is taking those stones down and then writing God's promise and rebuilding it to be something of God's promises instead of not him, of a lie.
It's good. Got anything else, Lawson?
Anything?
No, I don't think, I don't have anything else.
I think it was good.
I want to say to you out loud. No, I appreciate you being vulnerable and just sitting down and talking about something that I know that you've already voiced out that it would be hard, because I do think that you brought knowledge and profound differences that's from the Holy Spirit. And so, like, I think the enemy wants every one of God's children to question the calling or their knowledge or their abilities. And God's just saying, sit down and I will do the rest. And he did. And I am enriched by things that you've talked about. So I just want to voice that out. We're canceling out the lies.
Thanks a bunch. I appreciate that.
No, I'm serious.
That's kind of
really good.
I'm being serious. I don't know if you...
Yeah, I agree fully.
We're going to disagree?
No. Oh my gosh.
Well,
No,
thank you.
it's
I
good.
appreciate that. It's nice of you. Air slap.
And it's relatable because I feel like there's plenty of times I feel that way. I feel that way. Even this topic isn't something that is like well versed in, but even just reading the Bible, I'm like, oh, it is in our life.
Yeah.
Read your Bible, but it is in our life. Like, it is so prominent that it's almost like you don't even realize that's what it is.
I think too, because I believe striving has this social success towards it. Like, people are like, oh,
hustle.
yeah,
It's
great.
like a currency now
It's
of like
normal.
Yeah.
And it's great. Good job. Way to go. You built this. Do you know that and Nick always says this, like, I would have much rather known that my kids see me day to day than to know I've spent hours and hours and hours building out firefighting and hours of time and hours away. In the end, what was the result? They'll never know that. They'll think I was just not there. Right. And so in the back end, it feels great. You're building legacy. You're giving generational wealth. You're doing all this stuff. And so it's socially acceptable, but truly it's depleting, and you're gathering where moths and dust settle.
Yeah. Well, this is good.
Yeah.
Should we land the plane?
Let's land the plane.
Okay, we're going to land the plane here. Thank you for listening again.
Yes.
Thank you for those who have also supported us and shared and just want, the words of the Lord to be given to those they know and, don't know even. But we just wanted to say thank you for listening, and until next time, goodbye.
Bye.
Yeah, want to say bye?
Peace.